Welcome to this critical intelligence synthesis report, focusing heavily on the rapidly deteriorating area of operations in the Middle East and its surrounding maritime arteries. We are witnessing a historic and dangerous level of strategic friction in the Persian Gulf. The region is currently experiencing a massive convergence of kinetic military escalation, a complete diplomatic deadlock between superpowers, and an impending threat to the globe's most vital maritime choke points. In a significant geopolitical shift, reports indicate that the United Arab Emirates is positioning itself to back the United States in a potential ground offensive against Iran. At the exact same time, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard claims to have shot down yet another advanced American warplane, adding fuel to a fire that is already burning out of control. In this comprehensive 10-minute briefing, we will map out the dual-track escalation model, dissect the impossible diplomatic ultimatums, and analyze the incoming wave of thousands of U.S. combat troops that could trigger a global economic shockwave. Let's begin the analysis.
To understand the current theater, we must look at the dual-track escalation model currently at play. On the diplomatic front, a fragile back channel is operating, with Pakistan serving as the primary intermediary between Washington and Tehran. The United States has delivered a rigid 15-point proposal that essentially demands the total nuclear defanging of Iran. Iran, unyielding, has countered with a hardline 5-point list of sovereignty demands. But while these secret back-channel ultimatums are being passed, the kinetic track on the ground is exploding. Over a mere 24-hour period, there have been 23 separate militant attacks executed against U.S. military installations across Iraq. The aggression isn't contained there. Active drone strikes have been reported targeting Kuwaiti airports. Furthermore, there is a confirmed Iranian strike that successfully hit an Israeli power facility, demonstrating a willingness to strike high-value civilian infrastructure across borders.
Assessing the true cost of this conflict requires navigating a dense fog of war. There is a massive narrative gap between the claims of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard and the official denials and adjustments from U.S. CENTCOM. Regarding fighter jets, CENTCOM claims that 3 downed U.S. jets were the result of friendly fire from their own Patriot systems, noting the pilots survived. However, Iranian sources claim their air defenses downed an advanced F-35 stealth fighter on March 19th, as well as 3 F-15 Strike Eagles downed by a Kuwaiti pilot earlier in the month. In terms of logistics, 2 U.S. mid-air refueling jets, crucial for sustained aerial campaigns, were reportedly destroyed mid-air on March 12th, while 5 more were claimed damaged at a Saudi airbase. Alongside claims of widespread drone attrition, specifically MQ-9 Reapers, the human toll is mounting. CENTCOM has officially reported at least 290 U.S. troop casualties and injuries amid these relentless theater-wide skirmishes.
So, what exactly is holding up the peace process? We're facing a severe diplomatic deadlock matrix characterized by entirely incompatible demands across 3 strategic dimensions. First, regarding regional posture, the U.S. demands the total dismantling of the axis of resistance proxies and insists the Strait of Hormuz be declared open international waters. Iran counters with the closure of all U.S. military bases across the Middle East, asserting full Iranian security control over Hormuz with a new financial mechanism. Second, nuclear and arms. Washington requires the destruction of the Natanz, Isfahan, and Fordo nuclear sites, the surrender of all enriched uranium, and limiting ballistic missiles to a range of under 1,000 kilometers. Iran strictly views its ballistic missile program as non-negotiable. Finally, economic terms. The U.S. offers to lift sanctions and assist with a civilian nuclear plant at Bushehr, provided it remains under U.S. control. Iran, however, demands total financial compensation for war damages and the unconditional lifting of all sanctions.
To break this deadlock,
The U.S. has proposed a one-month truce mechanism based on complex game theory. The stated American intent is to implement a 30-day cooling-off period. This would temporarily pause all kinetic strikes to allow the 15-point negotiation to breathe via Pakistani channels, and critically, to stabilize the panicked global energy markets. However, Iranian leadership is assessing this through a very different lens. They view the proposed truce as an asymmetrical tactical stall, a strategic trap. Tehran believes this pause would simply allow Israel and the U.S. to continue preparations or isolated strikes while artificially restricting Iran's own retaliatory capabilities. Harboring high skepticism regarding any U.S. promises to lift sanctions, the strategic takeaway is definitive. Iran insists on a permanent resolution based strictly on their 5 terms, and they are rejecting the temporary ceasefire concept entirely.
While the diplomats argue, a massive and highly visible strategic force convergence is underway. Approximately 7,000 total converging troops, heavily comprised of specialized marine and airborne forces, are moving into the theater. The USS Tripoli Amphibious Group, carrying elements of the 31st Marine Expeditionary Unit, was ordered out of Japan on March 23, transiting the Malacca Strait toward Diego Garcia with an ETA of late March. Simultaneously, the USS Boxer Amphibious Group, carrying the 11th MEU, is making a grueling 22,000-kilometer transit from San Diego, expected to arrive by early to mid-April. Additionally, elements of the 82nd Airborne Division's Immediate Response Force are deploying. Military analysts warn that this heavy deployment of amphibious elements, forces explicitly capable of delivering land assault vehicles and Marines directly to foreign shores, strongly signals a logistical readiness for imminent coastal or ground operations, superseding mere aerial support.
This overwhelming buildup of force is causing a severe regional fracture. Nations can no longer sit on the fence. Iraq and Kuwait are currently designated as active flashpoints. As mentioned, U.S. installations in Iraq face intense targeting, and Kuwait's international airport is under active drone threat. The United Arab Emirates is now categorized as aligned and threatened. The Emirati ambassador has publicly confirmed UAE support for U.S. operations to open Hormuz, including potential ground assaults. In swift retaliation, Iran has issued explicit threats to attack UAE infrastructure if they assist in seizing Iranian islands. Conversely, Qatar is maintaining a status of strict neutrality. By actively remaining out of the crosshairs, Qatar is currently viewed positively by Iranian leadership. Meanwhile, Saudi Arabia is providing strategic support, with back-channel communications indicating full operational backing for U.S. military postures.
Perhaps the most terrifying aspect of a ground offensive is what military planners refer to as the choke point cascade. This is a sequential disaster scenario. Step 1 is the trigger. U.S. forces initiate ground or coastal operations, potentially with UAE support, to forcibly secure the Strait of Hormuz. Step 2 is proxy activation. In response, Iran immediately commands highly prepared Houthi forces in Yemen to fully activate. Step 3 triggers the secondary warning. The Houthis physically block the vital Bab el-Mandeb Strait, a geographic choke point connecting the Indian Ocean to the Red Sea. Finally, Step 4 is the global consequence, a total disruption of the Arabian Sea, Red Sea, Suez route. Forced detours would trigger an immediate, unprecedented global energy price spike. The strategic insight here is dire. The threat is mathematically asymmetric. A localized U.S. tactical victory in Hormuz could instantly trigger a strategic global economic defeat via the closure of Bab el-Mandeb.
To synthesize this briefing, we must acknowledge 3 unavoidable realities. Reality 01: incompatible demands. Diplomacy is fundamentally stalled. The U.S. requirement for total nuclear submission and proxy dismantling mathematically cannot coexist with Iran's unyielding demands for Middle Eastern U.S. base closures and total maritime control. Reality 02: impending convergence. the physical arrival of roughly 7,000 U.S. amphibious and airborne forces in April acts as a hard timeline. This armada forces a transition from mere diplomatic posturing to kinetic, ground-capable readiness. Reality 03, the multi-front risk. This theater has expanded far beyond a bilateral conflict. With active fire in Iraq, Kuwait, and Israel, and looming existential threats over the UAE and the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, the conflict is hardwired to trigger a catastrophic regional cascade upon the very first major ground offensive. The stakes have never been higher, and the window for peace is rapidly closing.